I don't know how I even came across your book, but I think it was actually at the store. There are
Wonderful.
a few books. Yeah, there are a few books I actually buy as versus the Kindle, and this is one of them. It just felt like it has to be a hard copy book,
Hmm.
because I just choose a page and read a page. It's heavy reading. So usually it sits there right on a little side table in the
Ah,
living room, actually, for people to see when they come in as well. It's a beautiful cover page as well. And I just, open up to a page, and, that's supposed to be the page for the day for me. And I find that to be a reasonable way to take it in. This was a wonderful, it was sort of a creative as well as meditative experience at the same time. So many different things coming together here. I felt as a creative person, I had a lot of like drawings and paintings coming up for me.
ah. Reading for centuries was not a silent act. Um, if you go previous to the 12th century in the sort of Western history, reading was prescribed by physicians as a form of exercise akin to
Hmm.
walking, because to read out loud, you're taking in the breath, and there's the whole bodily action of reading, which gets lost in this transition to silent reading, which is a relatively new invention. So I love any opportunity to re-inhabit, re-embody the words, which is why, I'm sure as an actor, is one of the reasons we go to theater, because there, you can read the difference between reading a script, reading a play by Arthur Miller or by Shakespeare is totally different from
Right.
being in the presence of brilliant actors who bring it to life as if it was happening right before your eyes. So beautiful.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. So I'm a writer and editor myself, and I always feel like and not just me, but the best writer. I'm a journalist, and best writers, they hear it,
Yeah.
and it's the one thing I can't teach.
Mhm.
It's I can't. They either get it or they don't, and it's the sound that this is right and this is, that's how you choose.
Yeah.
Logic, yes, but sound. What for
Yeah.
poetry is different, but
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
it's interesting, Dan, what you're saying as well, because I do, and listening also is very different for bilingual and multilingual brains than it is for a monolingual brain. James and I have been talking about it. I'm naturally, as an Indian, I'm naturally bilingual at least, but now I'm multilingual.
Yeah.
And Tom, it's interesting as well to context recognition. I don't necessarily always have to hear words. I can actually parse context without, even if the person is turned away.
Hmm.
And the other day, like James and I got into a little bit of a mini argument, meaning because I lack the empathy of someone that has been trained in one language. So I oftentimes will get frustrated because when I have to spell things out much more, be in the direction of, and then I was like, oh my God, it's because our brains are different.
Hmm.
In this particular way, obviously our brains are different.
I feel the same when I'm speaking and listening to Spanish at home, because now I would put myself on par of like almost fluent until I hear an idiomatic expression. And then I'm like, I don't know what the context is. And that's when I feel too that I have frustration. Or like when Harry says, you said that perfectly, but it's not how somebody would say something. And it's like, oh, it's that rewiring of the brain is really interesting, that you bring up, Nirupa. And I don't know, but I it still has the power, even if I don't know the word, the sounds, I can usually garner the context. And that's what I felt like today. Like I had this experience with the Latch for Love one, and we've done this verse before. We've experienced this verse before, you and I, Tom. And I felt like the P's in the Tama like resonated in my chest. And I
Hmm.
felt like that yielded a different experience than the English did, which is a lot more
Ah.
L sounds and like long, softer sounds, whereas it was way more plosive, and it gave me a better context for the Tamar than it did in English, which I
How
thought was
beautiful.
really wild. Yeah.
How beautiful. There's one of the lessons I got from my teacher, Dr. Kuve Ramakoti, very early on, was he said, listen to the sounds of the language, even though you don't understand anything. And I didn't understand anything at first. Just listen to the sounds of the language. And then he said further, sound is an energy. Sound makes things happen. Be in the sound. And that was a very profound lesson for me, which I am still learning, still experiencing. The energy of the sound, and this is can be very precisely explored. The frequencies, the different vibrations of different consonants, different vowel sounds, how they resonate in the body chambers, in the how they resonate in a room. All of these things. And all of these things are things that often get lost on a page, right? Where if we sort of go to just the sort of cerebral understanding of a word, that's one thing. It can be very useful and helpful. But there's also this whole other experience of the language as part of our lived natural experience that can be deeply healing and deeply profound.